This is for Mike, the Master Electrician grounding between meter base and main circuit panel via metal conduit requires grounding pipe as well as neutral and panel bonds. If using PVC, no need to ground conduit in any case because it's obviously an insulator. What if I use a ground jumper wire between meter base ground lug and panel ground to neutral bond?
Hi, I'm Mike, thanks for requesting me. Please stand by while I review your question. At the meter you have two-phase conductor, hots and a service ground. The ground doesn't become a neutral until it hit the first service disconnect. At that point it becomes an insulated wire and the ground may remain uninsulated. If you use a metal raceway, a grounding bushing must be installed on one end and just an insulated bushing on the other end. The service ground, neutral and equipment grounds all reside on the neutral bar.
Hi Mike. The conduit between the old meter base and the new panel is of an odd size that no standard ground bushing will fit. I don't know why it was originally installed without any ground bushing at all in the first place. I neglected to correct this issue when I installed the replacement panel. To compensate, I added a green 8-gauge insulated copper wire between the meter base ground electrode where the bare copper water ground lands and the bonded ground bus inside the new panel. This will keep the conduit from energizing in any situation and trip the main should there ever be a short or any leakage whatsoever. Will this pass inspection? If not, can I simply replace the metal conduit with a PVC conduit, thereby completely eliminating any need for a ground bushing? Thanks.
PVC conduit will pass inspection. You only need the 3 conductors from meter to panel. The termination of the service ground in the meter provides its grounding.
The original install has 4 conductors in the meter base. 2 insulated hots, 1 insulated neutral, 1 bare copper 6-gauge ground bonded to the service neutral. I jumped from the ground/neutral termination to the panel ground bus. Does this not eliminate the need for a ground bushing on the metal conduit between the meter and panel? Is it legal? Thanks.
A ground bushing's purpose is to effectively ground the metal conduit, not to provide a ground to the enclosures connected to. Grounds and neutrals only reside together in the main service panel neutral bar. One more thing. Grounding bushings varied for all sizes of pipe. No exceptions.
I'm left with no choice but to either ground the metal conduit or replace it with a PVC conduit, correct? I presume they won't bitch about there being no bushings on a plastic PVC pipe. D. There is also a 1.5 pound running from the new panel through a cinder block wall to the old sub-panel, which has been converted to a junction box. Is a ground bushing required on that conduit too? I ran a green 8-gauge copper ground between the panel ground bus and the body of the old sub-panel. Will this suffice? Thanks.
The consideration for bushing use are 1. Type of metal conduit connector. EMT connectors taper and effectively gound if installed in a KO of only its size. Multiple sized KOs will still need a grounding bushing. 2. Galv rigid conduit always needs a grounding bushing at least on one end for grounding the conduit, not as a path for ground. 3. PVC and larger sizes need a plastic bushing for conductor insulation protection, sharp edge on fittings.
I'm trying to avoid disconnecting and reconnecting all the wires to the junction box, old sub-panel, in order to add a ground bushing. Can I skip doing this or do I have to replace it with PVC too? I know I have to replace the conduit between the meter base and panel with PVC, but I don't want to waste hours replacing the pound between the panel and junction box.
Use a ground strap. Perforated copper strap around conduit with screw connection to junction box.
The cover on the pound is held on with screws. Can I simply run the perforated ground strap from one of those sandwiched between the cover and body to the body of the J-box? I will leave the ground bond wire between the panel ground bus and J-box body as is.
No, you can't share a screw. It needs to be in a drilled holes with a locking washer or a locking nut on the screw.
Take a grounding strap and wrap it around the pipe of the pound, then bond it to the body of the J-box. Why can't I do this to the conduit between the meter base and panel too?
You can if you drill the holes at the bottom to avoid water infiltration. Remember that a plastic bushing will still need to be installed. If you're trying to avoid removing the wires, cut the plastic bushing and crazy glue it after put around the wires before setting on conduit end.
Hey, what if I simply put a 2 inches bronze ground clamp around the conduit between the meter and panel and connect that to the 4-gauge bare copper ground wire coming into the panel or to the ground bus inside the panel? This will ground the conduit 100%. I can do this to the pound also. Will that pass? Might look like shit, but it will function safely and permanently.
Works for me and I agree, it will look like shit.
Right, that's what I'm gonna do then. If it's legal, then I don't give a shit how it looks. Smile, thanks.
You're welcome.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit JustAnswer.com/YTHI.